When you expose a narcissist, you expect the truth to bring you peace, but instead, it triggers their survival instinct. Their system sees exposure as danger, like an animal being backed into a corner. So logic shuts down and instinct takes over. And that's when the mask really slips. In this video, we'll break down 3 moves narcissists use after being exposed and how to protect yourself when their true nature comes out. My name is Christina, and I help people untangle the psychology of manipulation so they can stop reacting to someone else's nonsense and start living in their own peace. So many of you have described the moment you exposed the narcissist, and pretty much all of you describe it in a similar way, almost otherworldly. Their eyes might darken and their tone shifts to something you've never heard before. You'd previously thought that you'd seen the worst this person had to offer because you've been witness to some pretty rotten behavior. But this moment just feels different. Well, that's because it is different. Because unlike others, this moment isn't born of pure selfishness or even petty revenge. It's the moment their survival instinct kicks in and it feels like an absolute attack on their ego. And if you've ever experienced what they call the dark night of the soul, you know that the ego doesn't go quietly, not for any of us, and especially not this kind of ego. And to be clear, the kind of ego I'm talking about is the inflated sense of self that believes that it is the whole self, which lines up with psychotherapist Carl Jung's definition. And I absolutely did need to clarify that because every time I mention a narcissist's ego, someone jumps into the comments to correct me, sometimes quite aggressively. But they say that a narcissist doesn't actually have an ego, which is only true if you're using Freud's definition of the word. So it gets a little tricky here, but according to Jung's view, everyone has an ego. It's just that in narcissists, that sense of self becomes so inflated that it becomes completely disconnected from reality. All right, so thanks for taking that little detour with me. I hope it was helpful. And if not, then thank you for indulging me anyway. And now back to our regularly scheduled point. The ego doesn't go quietly. And the more fragile and inflated the ego, the more violently it defends itself. So think of it like a pressure cooker. For most people, an ego injury builds up the pressure, and make no mistake about it, it's uncomfortable. But eventually the pressure leaves your system with the help of things like self-reflection and accountability. And these things act kind of like the release valve for the pressure cooker. But I think you kind of are seeing where this is going with a narcissist, because a narcissist has no such release valve. There's no self-reflection, no accountability, not even an ounce of true humility. So the pressure builds and builds until it finally blows. And when it does, it's usually an explosive attack. But this can look different depending on the person you're dealing with. So let's explore what these attacks might look like in real life, because some people explode outward and others collapse inward and play the victim. And these aren't random reactions. They're what I call control responses. They're automatic ways a narcissist tries to regain control once their false self has been threatened. In other words, when reality starts to catch up to them, they don't self-reflect, they self-protect. And the way they do tells you everything about what kind of narcissist you're dealing with. So let's walk through a few of the most common control responses you might see when their mask slips, starting with the one that's easy to miss because it looks nothing like aggression on the surface. And this control response catches people by surprise. And I'm talking about the pity party, because it might look like sadness, remorse, or even love. But don't be fooled. This is not any form of accountability. This is gaslighting on steroids. When a narcissist realizes they've been exposed, they'll go to lengths you've never seen before to make you question everything you thought you knew about them. So they might suddenly love bomb you, shower you with affection, or act selflessly in ways that feel almost spiritual. They'll call it fear of losing you, but it's really fear of being seen. Because if you leave them for who they truly are, that's a pain their system can't handle. So this last-ditch effort to win you back isn't about love at all. It's about control. It's a frantic attempt to convince you that they're the kind of loving, selfless person they need you to believe they are. And the moment you do start to believe it, the moment you relax and lean into the idea that maybe they've really changed this time, or maybe you were overreacting or looking for the worst in them, that right there is when they will leave you flat. Because even though narcissists do fear rejection, they never face it. They just outrun it. So now let's talk about retaliation and revenge. So if the pity party doesn't work, if you don't take the bait and rush in to comfort them, and don't start doubting yourself, this is when the charm dies off completely and you meet the version of them you were never supposed to see. They'll shift from desperate to dangerous, and they'll use whatever leverage they still have to punish you for seeing the truth. And sometimes it looks like anger or intimidation, so yelling, insults, or threats. But it can also be much quieter and more strategic. So this is where they might be doing whatever they can to sabotage you behind the scenes. And on the surface, it looks like revenge, but at its core, it's really about shame. You see, when you expose a narcissist, you activate the one emotion their system cannot regulate, and that is humiliation. Their brain reads it as a total loss of control. And their only way to escape that feeling is to flip the script on you. So they do whatever they can to make you the villain. Because if they can get even one person to believe their version of events, it takes the spotlight off the truth. And it soothes the shame that's bubbling up to the surface. The shame they typically don't allow themselves to feel. And in that state, their goal isn't to win you back, it's to win the narrative. But here's the psychological piece that's hard to see when you're in it. The more vicious they get, the more exposed they feel. The rage is the cover-up, because deep down, that humiliation is unbearable. And if they can't make it go away, they'll try to hand it to you. So now we've danced around this a little bit, and narcissists will too, until they get to the point where they're ready for the full-out smear campaign. When they can't win you back and they can't control your version of reality, they try to poison the well. This is the smear campaign, and it's a deliberate attempt to discredit you, rewrite the public story, and turn other people against you. So how does this happen? Well, it might look like a few concerned DMs to mutual friends with half-truths about you, or maybe all-out lies. Or it might be a social media post that is accidentally vague, but clearly aimed at you. And it might also look like leaked texts or edited clips to make your words look worse than they were. So this is also like using reactive abuse. So they might take texts that you sent them that maybe you're not proud of, but they leave out the part of what they did to make you so wound up that you responded that way. And so it becomes easy to paint you as the villain. And sometimes it's loud and obvious, and sometimes it's whisper campaigns, like quiet lies spread so subtly that they feel believable. And here's why they do it. Because narrative control equals safety for the narcissist. If they can make even one person doubt your truth, they remove the threat of exposure. It soothes their shame by proving, like, see, I'm not the problem. And when you've got no contact, this is often where you'll notice it, because your silence gives them space to tell their story first. But don't assume this smear campaign is only post-relationship. You can definitely see signs much earlier, and sometimes right in front of your face, when the narcissist starts casually undermining you around mutual friends, or testing who will repeat their version of events. And if you think you're seeing this right now, right in front of your face, here are some early warning signs to look for. So people who used to be neutral may suddenly seem hesitant around you. Maybe mutual friends start asking leading questions about your behavior. Or you notice subtle tension in spaces you once felt really safe, like family dinners, friend groups, or work meetings. You may notice little rumors that show up that don't match anything you said or did. And it all feels really confusing and isolating, and almost like reality is bending around you, right? You get the feeling that someone is poisoning people against you, and you desperately want to know what they're saying. But that's exactly the point. Well, at least part of it. Because at this point, they very much want you to feel isolated and confused, but they also want to get a reaction out of you. So don't give it to them whatever you do. Instead, here's what you can do. Save any evidence you have because you'll never know when you might need it later. So things like text messages or voice recordings could be helpful in the future. Next, hold your silence. Never act in anger because that only gives them fuel. And then tell your version of events to people who matter to you, but don't keep telling it. The more you defend yourself, the more it looks like you have something to defend. And finally, let time be your ally. Smear campaigns are loud early on, but they hollow out over time, and people who matter will notice the pattern. And I know this all hurts, but smear campaigns do have a way of thinning out the herd, because it will become very clear who actually cares about you and who just cares about drama. So now let's talk about why these traps work. These tactics don't work because you're naive. They work because they hit your biology. When someone you once trusted turns against you, your body doesn't think I'm being manipulated. It thinks I'm losing connection. Oh no. So your system scrambles to fix it, to defend, explain, or to soothe yourself. Anything to restore safety and balance in your system. And that's really your attachment wiring doing its job. It's not anything malfunctioning. But here's the twist that's easy to miss. When a narcissist feels rejected, they feel that same panic, that same collapse in their nervous system. Only instead of sitting with it, they flip it and they project it outward. So in their world, if they can make you feel rejected, powerless, or off balance, then they don't have to feel those feelings themselves. It's kind of like emotional hot potato. They have to pass the pain before it burns them. And that's why they're abusive in the relationship. And that's also why they lash out so hard after they're exposed. The pain is very much related to the level of reaction within them. But it's also why their attacks feel so personal. They're trying to hand you their shame so they don't have to carry it anymore. And to be honest, it works for them. Narcissists rarely feel shame because, just like fear of rejection, they outrun it. To a narcissist, these things are like big, scary monsters in a horror movie. They truly believe they have to outrun it because if they stand still, they'll surely die. But your nervous system isn't wired that way. Your nervous system is wired for connection because it thinks that's how you fix the relationship. But you can't regulate their shame by absorbing it, even if you wanted to. All that does is keep your body trapped in the same old pattern, chasing calm inside someone else's chaos. And when you can see it all for what it is, the pity plays, the retaliation, the smear campaign, you stop taking it personally, and you realize all the moves they make after being exposed aren't about you at all. And the moment you stop reacting, their game just ends. Sure, they will move on to another victim if they haven't already, but you will be free. And that is a beautiful place to be. But if you're in the stage right now where their mask has slipped and everything feels like it's falling apart, just remember this is what it feels like to fall out of their illusion. It's not the end of your piece. It's actually the beginning of it. And if you want to learn how to stay grounded while they try to pull you back in, check out this video right here. And if you need some guidance from this place of emotional chaos to a place of personal freedom, click here to book a session with me. And be sure to like this video if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.